one of the suspected shooters also dead. About a dozen others were wounded. We have a special report on what we know about the victims this hour. The gunman who has been killed is 34-year-old Aaron Alexis, a Navy contractor from Texas who was once in the military. He opened fire at the Washington Navy Yard this morning, sending the city into chaos. We're learning much more about Alexis at this hour, including some late-breaking news that the man you're looking at right there was arrested in Seattle for a, quote, anger-fueled shooting when he was in the military. Then, when he was discharged, he was allowed to come back as a contractor. We're going to be speaking to people who knew him well and his religious affiliation as a Buddhist. The shooting started at about 8:20 a.m., less than 3 miles from the White House, where the flag has been lowered to half-staff in honor of those killed. Law enforcement sources tell CNN that only one weapon has been...
Sometimes I'd leave the door open for them and let them come in with me. So that kind of thing might be what we're looking for in this accomplice or this other alleged gunman. It might be somebody that actually worked there, knew him, and maybe that's the person that allowed him access.
And John, let me ask you, we just have some details coming in right now that I want to just make sure I share with you and our viewers, that they're now saying, literally, as you were talking to him, the suspect drove in this morning to the U.S. Naval Yard with his military contractor ID and parked, walked into the building, and then made his way in to begin his shooting spree. He was armed with an AR-15, a rifle, and a semi-automatic Glock. They believe that he used the AR-15 for most of the shooting, which, of course, is a weapon which has been used in recent horrible shootings, including Sandy Hook, as well as Aurora. John, let me ask you, though, how this happened. As the reporting that we have now, he used his military contractor ID. How is this so? He served in the Navy, and then while he was in the Navy, he was arrested for an anger-fueled shooting in Seattle. Still stayed in the Navy. Finally, the Navy discharges him for a pattern of misconduct, and he's allowed to work again as a contractor. How does that happen? How can this guy walk in with a contractor ID and some kind of light go off saying, this guy was sent away for a pattern of misconduct, he shouldn't be allowed in?
Well, I think Tim is right. First of all, we need to think about these families. They were expecting their loved ones home about this time, and they're not home.
Most of the officials that we've talked to, it seems as though they are still under the assumption that one shooter killed all 13 of the victims.
Jennifer, before I let you go, I've been reading a little bit about what they'll do next at that Navy Yard, and I want to make it clear to our viewers that that is not a dormant place. There is a museum there, but they do business at that yard too. So what is the plan going forward?
Well, it's interesting. Admiral Jonathan Greenert, who's the Chief of Naval Operations, he's also a member of the Joint Chiefs. He lives at the Navy Yard behind me. He was there this morning. He was at his home when the shooting started, and his personal security detail got him off the base. He was taken to a safe position. He has to go home tonight. And then, of course, there were 3,000 people working for the NAV Sea Command, the Naval Sea Command, which, of course, is the group that builds and procures and does all the planning for U.S. Navy ships and submarines and all those very, very high-tech Navy systems. They will at some point be going back to work, but again, until recently, they were clearing the buildings there very slowly, very methodically to make sure no one else was left behind. No other suspects were left behind.
Jennifer Griffin, thank you very much tonight. There is word that police have warrants to search the homes of the suspects, some of the suspects' relatives in Brooklyn, New York, because that is his original home that he listed when he was in the military as a Navy reservist. And more details are coming out exactly about Aaron Alexis. We've learned police have arrested him more than once in recent years in different cities where he's lived. And his father apparently told detectives in one city that Alexis had developed anger management issues after the attacks of September 11, 2001. Jonathan Hunt will be along inside the Fox Report with more on that. First, when the shooting began, some people had nowhere to go. And I mentioned they ran to the roof. They had to wait for helicopters.
To that person before they cross him off the list. At this point, the FBI has determined that there was only one shooter. It was Aaron Alexis. Again, it looks like he drove in. He's a military contractor. He was allowed onto this property. They're still not sure what motivated him to do this. There is no sign of any ideology, any kind of anti-government sentiment or anything like the Fort Hood incident, obviously. Right now, they're still just trying to figure out what what could have caused this right now.
And we are going to have much more on this. As I've told our viewers, we've been speaking to people who know Aaron Alexis and his religious affiliation as a Buddhist, his frustration with the contractors. So we have a special report on that coming up. But Tim Clemente, let me just ask you about Evan's reporting there on a second person. Obviously, until Evan was reporting this in D.C., they had a stand-in-place order for people in the area. So that they thought that this could have been a second shooter. But now they're saying a second person who was involved. What do you think they're looking at?
Like I said a few minutes ago, Aaron, I think this may be a person that allowed him either access or you know, maybe paved the way for him in some other way. The individual in question, Aaron, he had to get in there, and generally if you're not somebody that has an identification that provides you access, you can come in as a guest, but you have to be a guest of somebody. Somebody there has to be expecting you. Maybe that's this individual they're looking for. Maybe he allowed him to come in not knowing that this was his ultimate goal. And, you know, because of that, he's run and hidden. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and it's going to take some time because they're going to be reviewing video, they're going to review entry logs and everything else to try and piece this together. And you got to give the investigators some time, but I think we'll have some answers, I would think, maybe by tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tim and John. We appreciate it. And again, our Evan Perez reporting that the shooter, Aaron Alexis, came in this morning by car, then cleared using his Navy contractor, I want to emphasize ID, with 3 weapons, including an AR-15, a rifle, and a Glock. Of course, the AR-15 used in some of the most recent horrific mass shootings in this country, including Aurora and Sandy Hook. Our breaking news coverage of the Navy Yard shooting will continue. We are learning more about the shooter. Outfront spoke with his landlord today, spoke with some of his friends, some of his co-workers. They're going to tell you about this man that you see there. Plus, 12 people murdered who lost their lives needlessly in today's horrific attack. 3 others currently being treated for their injuries. We are going to go live to the hospital for an update on their conditions and learn more about what we know about the victims tonight.
Departure, arrival, search, chat, check-in, new foods, new friends, new clients, connect, live, work, play, breathe. Earn triple Hilton Honors points when you stay Friday through Sunday nights at Hilton Garden Inn.
Big Oil presents Mr. Slick and Dummy.
You know what the RFS is, dummy? It's the Renewable Fuel Standard. It requires the oil companies to blend renewable fuels with their gasoline.
And that's real bad, right?
Yeah, for Big Oil, because it means we use less oil and more renewable, dummy.
Why doesn't Big Oil want you to know the RFS is good for America? You're no dummy. Don't let the oil industry treat you like one.
These days, a small business can save by sharing, like carpools.
Polly wants to know if we can pick her up.
Yeah, we can make one. Yeah.
Office space.
We're loving this communal seating. Oh, it's great.
The best thing to share? A data plan. AT&T Mobile Share for Business. 1 bucket of data for everyone on the plan. Unlimited talk and text on smartphones. Now, everyone's in the spirit of sharing.
Hey, can I borrow your boat this weekend? No.
Share more, save more. AT&T Mobile Share for Business.
This man is about to be the millionth customer.
Can I go ahead of you?
Instead, we had someone go ahead of him and win $50,000.
Congratulations! You are our 1 millionth customer!
Nobody likes to miss out. That's why Ally treats all their customers the same, whether you're the first or the millionth. If your bank doesn't think you're special anymore, you need an ally. Ally Bank. Your money needs an ally.
Would you like to know how adaptive dynamic technology makes the Jaguar XFR feel so alive?
A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation and satisfaction. A little more body, a little less bar. A little less body, a little more spa. Open up your eyes, baby, satisfy me.
Questions? The XFR from Jaguar.
For great offers, visit your local Jaguar retailer today.
I was made to work, make my mark with pride, create moments of value, build character through quality, and earn the right to be called a classic. The Land's End No Iron Dress Shirt, starting at $49.
Congratulations to CNN's Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, on your Primetime Emmy win.
That is some my friends.
And we're just getting started.
Not bad.
Get ready for a brand new season of amazing locations.
He's incredibly beautiful. Don't know why I didn't expect that.
And incredible adventures.
When the zombie apocalypse comes, I'll be ready, as long as they're holding deer.
Emmy-winning Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. Sunday nights, 9 Eastern and Pacific on CNN.
And our third story out front, the suspect. Police have now identified 34-year-old Aaron Alexis as the suspect in today's shooting rampage at the Washington Navy Yard. 13 people, including Alexis, are confirmed dead. According to police, he massacred 12 innocent people this morning. Out front spoke with Alexis's landlord, who told us he can't believe Alexis would do something like this. He said that Alexis had never shown any signs of violence, and the landlord says he wasn't even aware that Alexis owned any weapons. Now, we're learning a lot more about him, about his possible affiliation with the Buddhist faith, that he may have even spoken Thai. A lot more information coming in tonight, and our reporters are breaking this story from every angle. Joe Johns is in Washington, and Ed Lavandera is in Fort Worth, Texas, near the shooter's home, where a lot of people obviously knew him, and Ed's had a chance to speak with those people. Let me start with you, though, Joe, because obviously you are in Washington, where the shooter was today, where he carried out this horrific act, and I know you've had a chance to find out a little bit about his whereabouts over the past few days and people who have seen him.
That's true, Aaron. I spoke earlier today with a government employee, an official who lives out of town, who was in town on business last week, who told me that she met a man she believes to be Aaron Alexis at a hotel in Southwest Washington last Tuesday and had a 15-minute conversation with him on Tuesday, another one on Wednesday. She indicates that he told her he worked in computer security and expected to be here in Washington, D.C. for another week or two. Now, some of the other information we have about him, did you want to ask a question before I go on, Aaron?
No. I want you to tell us everything you know. Sorry, I was just nodding, yes.
Okay, so some of the other information we have is the government tells us he is a Navy IT contractor, 34 years old, and was a Navy reservist who entered the service around 2007 and was detached from the service in 2011, some type of aviation